So, it's been just over a year since the final episode of Archosaura graced your screens, and in that time, despite being the creator and the fact that I've only watched the series all the way through twice, I have thoughts. Now, you've got to remember that Archosaura is a product of its time. The earliest version is from 2017 and was inspired by Prehistoric Island, so of course it's not going to hold up to modern standards. So to start off this video with my completely unbiased opinion towards my own work, here is 10 things I dislike about Archosaura. The first main character we're introduced to in Season 1 is Jack. Being the Papo running Rex, you can probably guess that he was directly inspired by Malachite from Prehistoric Island. And looking back on it, I kind of wish I hadn't used a Tyrannosaurus. T-Rex is one of the top stereotypes of the DI genre, and I think if I were to go back, I would definitely change whatever species Jack was. Scale is one of those things where I really wish I'd tried harder. Most of the figures are supposed to be species in 140 scale, but there are a few examples where something that is really 160 scale is hanging around. Some notable examples of these would be the Brachiosaurus or the Iguanodon. While I was planning Archosaura Rebirth, I did actually have an idea of what it would be like if I had made it a season instead of a special. And it would have been 5 episodes, mainly focusing on everybody who didn't get a complete story in season 3. So this would have been Junior, the Raptors, the Lithrinax, and even some members of the herd. And I think those 5 episodes probably would have fit the story in a bit better. One thing about season 1 that I really regret doing is leaving out a proper broad introduction. If you remember, both seasons 2 and 3 begin with a broad episode, and I really wish I'd done that for the first season. This season still would have been 10 episodes because I would have removed one. Tempest is technically the first East Side character we meet, but there isn't actually any context to where he comes from. The one episode in season 1 that can actually be removed is episode 9, because it doesn't actually have any ramifications for the rest of the story. I think I probably should have left the reveal of the East Side until season 2, where it's actually relevant. Going into season 3, Sam the Baryonyx was actually supposed to be the main character, but I do just kind of feel like he got a bit sidelined, and that was probably a result of me trying to fit too much into the season. And I think Margaret's death was kind of unnecessary in the grand scheme of things, because she's in the series for 1.5 episodes, so one thing I really should have done was properly introduce the Baryonyx at the end of season 2. The main antagonist of season 1, of course, is Titan, but I must say, for a main antagonist, he's kind of wimpy, because Titan and Jack have, I think, 3 main fights throughout season 1, and only one ends in a draw, and the other 2 Jack wins. I think out of the original 3 seasons, Post Disaster definitely has the strongest story, but I do think it could have benefited from one extra episode, and I would have put this episode before Thunder from the Mountain. This episode essentially would have expanded upon the Baryonyx arc and also more build up towards the volcano. Archosaura is certainly an exception among DI shows, and it's mainly because of the number of character deaths. Across the 28 episodes, there are roughly 10 or 11 significant character deaths. And some of those are just thrown in there to increase the number, mainly Greywacky. The story of Derek in Season 2 has been a thorn in my side pretty much for the last 2 years. One of the biggest issues I have with that season is that the two main story arcs are way too similar, and the one I would change is that of Derek. This would basically be that Derek's story would end in episode 7, and therefore Sue would arrive too late to save him because he'd be dead. You might be looking at the first half of this video and wondering, do I really think it's that bad? To an extent, no. I am sort of proud of what I created with Archosaura. It was my first successful series on YouTube. But looking back on it, if I had seen other DI series other than Prehistoric Island before I had made this, it probably would have been different. I think the biggest change I would make is replacing a bunch of the species names. So, of course, there's a whole load of generic dinosaurs in here. So I think I would have replaced Tyrannosaurus with Tarbosaurus, Tarbosaurus with Juching tyrannus, Utahraptor with Achillobata with Latinovenatrix, Dakotaraptor with Diniobelata, Gastonia with Sauropelta, and the figure would have been different, it wouldn't have been a Chinosaur, Iguanodon with Bolong, and I would have completely omitted Brachiosaurus. I also think that if Rebirth had been a season, then I would have gotten the Schleichceratosaurus to play Junior. So I think overall, returning to Archosaura has been somewhat of a learning experience, especially since I came out of my shell when I created Open World. And looking back on it, I can see where exactly I went wrong and how to improve, especially with the upcoming production of Tidao. And I think if you're a fan of the old Dino Tube, it's still okay. Back when the standards were lower. So Rebirth was me coming out of the end of a period of about 8 years of the same techniques. And I don't really think I have to go back and remake anything because what I'm making in the future is gonna be better. So on that note, I think I'll say bye for now. Thanks for all the support, blah blah blah. And I'll leave you with this to mull over.